Hi everyone, welcome to Women's Health with the Listening Midwife. I'm Day Day, aka the Listening Midwife, and today our guest is Natalie.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. So the topic we're going to be talking about first.
Yeah.
Natalie's going to be featuring a couple of times on our show because she has just some stories that are really pertinent in today's climate of maternity. So I just thought it would be great to have her come and feature a couple of times for us and tell us about her birth experiences. So today, what are we talking about, Natalie?
Oligohydramnios.
Oligohydramnios, and that is a condition where there is not enough amniotic fluid around baby when they're growing in the uterus in the womb. So this is usually associated with a baby not growing to their full potential. So usually the babies are a bit smaller than expected as well. And that's usually picked up during the scanning process when you're being scanned in the hospital during the pregnancy. So Natalie, thank you very much for coming. And just if there's any point you feel like you need to stop, that's absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. We're just taking this at your pace. So tell us a little bit about your pregnancy. What pregnancy was this? What number baby was this? And tell us a bit.
So this was baby number 2. I had my daughter 10 years prior to having my first son. I was a lot older because I had my daughter when I was 18.
Yeah.
And then so it was a bit weird at first having a baby so late.
So you were 28 when you got pregnant with your son?
Yeah, right? I was, okay. Yeah.
So, and in that pregnancy, how was the pregnancy itself in the first part of the pregnancy until things changed? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, it was fine at first.
Yeah, so fairly straightforward pregnancy.
It was a lot more tiring than before because I was obviously a lot younger before.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was fine. I was still going to the gym. Everything else is fine.
Okay, fab. So with that, you were 28. Pregnancy was fairly straightforward. You were seeing your midwife for appointments in the clinic or in the hospital?
Yeah. Both, yeah.
Perfect. And were the scans okay at the start? So normally you have a scan around 13
the scans
weeks.
are perfect.
Yeah, scan was fine at 13 weeks. And the scan where they sort of check the gender of the baby around 20 weeks, that was all fine as well?
Yeah, it's perfect, yeah.
Good, lovely. Is that where you found out you were having a boy?
Yeah, that's when I found out.
Lovely. And was this pregnancy classed as sort of low risk or high risk? Did they tell you that it was sort of
midwife-led? At first it was just normal.
Yeah.
Like normal, no risk at all.
So you didn't need to be seeing the doctors for anything. You were literally on the midwife's
care at first, plan. Yeah. I actually was planning on having a home birth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That didn't happen, did it?
No, that didn't happen.
Spoiler alert. So, okay, fine. Brilliant. And so at what point then did you feel like something changed during the pregnancy? What was it, like a sudden, today something's wrong, or was it kind of a gradual process that made you feel like actually something's not quite right?
At first it was like less movement.
Okay.
And then like my belly started to get like a lot smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, my clothes started getting bigger. Like the more heavier pregnant I was getting, the bigger my clothes were becoming.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really strange.
And around how many weeks of the pregnancy did you feel that this had started?
Around 32 weeks.
Okay. So 32 weeks. Did you find that over a period of time your clothes were loose and you just weren't, or was it that the movements kind of
The movement started first.
Okay.
Less movements first, and then the clothes started getting bigger when they should be getting tighter.
Okay. So you didn't feel like you were putting on like a normal amount of weight like a pregnant woman?
Yeah, I was losing more weight.
Okay.
Around my stomach area.
Wow, okay. And so when you first sort of thought baby's movements aren't what they should be, what did you do in that sort of first instance in realizing that actually I'm not happy with baby's movements?
I told my community midwife.
Okay. Yeah. And what did she advise you to do?
She said she'll keep on like measuring, and because at that time he was measuring up.
Okay.
It's only when he started to like measure lower than he was supposed to, that's when she raised the flag of concern.
Okay. So, and what Natalie's talking about there is actually when during your pregnancy, when you get past 26, 28 weeks gestation, the midwives monitor the growth of your baby by measuring your bump. So normally they'll measure sort of from the top of where they can feel your uterus right down to the pubic bone, and that measurement, they plot that on a special chart, and that gives an estimation of actually is the growth consistency as it should be for that baby. And they will generate this chart. In some trusts it's based on population charts, and in other trusts it's based on like ethnicity data as well as kind of height, weight data. So depending on where you're booked to have your baby, they may have their own specialized charts that they use to kind of define those measurements. And generally they will measure that every appointment after 28 weeks. So usually they will be able to see a trend to see if baby is consistently growing at along the same trajectory that it should be. And if there's any concerns with that growth, then usually what tends to happen is that they will then send you for growth scans in the hospital. And is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like when you had the sort of change in the movements, did you raise that just to your community midwife?
And then she raised it to the maternity assessment unit.
Okay. Yeah. So generally what we would advise women is that if you have any concerns with baby's movements during your pregnancy, because what tends to happen is after 24 weeks, babies will have a plan, not plan, they'll have a sort of a routine. Thank you. They'll have a routine of movements. So most women might say, oh, actually, when I'm lying down first thing in the morning when I've just woken up, or last thing at night, or after I eat, I find baby is more active, and that I know my baby will do that regularly for me. So most women will have an idea of what's normal for their baby, and it's different for every woman. So you will know what your baby does and what's best. If you have any concerns with that, we do advise that you contact your maternity triage unit, your assessment unit, and get some advice from them, because it might mean that they invite you into the hospital to have some further monitoring during the pregnancy to ensure that everything is okay with your baby. Sometimes it could be that babies just change patterns, and they do that over a day or two. You might notice that baby was a morning baby, now baby's an evening baby, but it's always important for you to know if those changes are what's happening. And did you feel like any of those kind of changes happened for you, or you just thought they were less often?
Yeah, he definitely came out his routine.
Yeah, he came out of his routine.
And he was sleeping a lot more.
Yeah. So we would always advise get that checked, contact your hospital, because they will have a 24-hour line for women who need to be seen urgently. So it's always best to contact that line. Don't wait for your community midwife appointment, because that might be a week away, and you wouldn't want to wait if you're worried about your baby that long. Yeah. Perfect. So then your community midwife raised her concerns to the assessment unit about the growth of the baby
and the
movements. And so she said with that combination, she'd rather you got seen more urgently.
Yeah.
So what happened then?
Then I used to have to go every single day to the MAU, maternity assessment unit, just to keep on checking. And I wasn't allowed to leave until he moved a certain amount of times.
Yeah. Did they give you a little clicker?
Yeah, a little clicker. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you get past 28 weeks, they do what's called continuous monitoring, and they will strap you to a little machine which records your baby's heart rate, and it sort of looks like a little zigzag pattern.
Yeah.
Press the button when you can feel baby moving, and so they, once you're happy that baby's moved enough, the midwife's happy with the baby's heart trace pattern, they call it a CTG. If they're happy with all of that, then they'll say, right, okay, this is the plan of when we want you to come back in for more monitoring. Again, they like to repeat it quite frequently until baby's movements sort of return to a normal, until you feel confident that your baby's sort of pattern is within the normal range. And so it sounds like your baby never really sort of got back into a normal pattern.
No, he didn't. That's when I knew something was wrong.
Okay. So every day, that's quite a lot of
every day. I used to be there for 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I would leave around 9 p.m.
Wow.
Every day.
That's a long time. Because normally what tends to happen is they'll do the monitoring, and if it's normal, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, depends on how well behaved your baby is. If they can't get a good trace for half an hour or so, then it can go on for quite a while. But it sounds like they kept you in longer.
Yeah, because he wasn't moving. No matter what they tried, he just wasn't moving.
Yeah. And so at what point on the scan did they then think actually baby's got oligohydramnios?
Then they sent me to a specialist unit to see a professor.
Did they scan you first to do their own?
Yeah, they scanned me like a
checks?
special scan. I've never seen that scan before.
Okay.
And then that's when they saw I had no fluid left.
Okay. Very interesting. So with that, sometimes if there are concerns with how baby is moving, they send you for a scan, and on that scan they might measure what's called a test that's called the Dopplers, and that's when they measure the blood flow from to the uterus to the baby, and they'll measure the blood flow in the brain and the blood flow through the cord as well. So they do lots and lots of assessments to say, okay, well, this is what we think the estimated weight of baby is. This is how much fluid we think is around the baby, and they take lots of measurements. So they take it from each sort of corner of the belly to get an estimate of how much of that fluid, and they sort of get an average, and that gives them a number, and they look at where that number fits in the range, and they'll also look at the blood flow study. And with all of those results, then they now say, okay, this is what we think is going on. We think your baby's got, is smaller than it should be. Or as a normal size, we think the blood flow is okay or not, or, and we think actually there's the right amount of fluid or not. And based on that, it sounds like they thought, did they think baby was growing okay? No, so they thought he was a bit smaller.
He was a bit small because his kidney stopped working, because he stopped urinating,
Yeah. So that's a fun fact. Did you know that actually the amniotic fluid is made up of urine, baby's urine, sterile, it's enclosed, and it goes in through the mouth, goes through the belly, it goes, it gets processed, and then they pee it out, and they just keep sort of regenerating that. And if baby's kidneys are working fine, then that fluid will keep going, and they'll keep getting more and more of that. But if baby's kidneys don't work as effectively as they should, then actually they pee less, which means they have less fluid.
Yeah.
So that, and what's this little one's name?
Kavani.
So Kavani decided that he wasn't going to be peeing enough. And that could be for different reasons. We don't always know why. But so that's something that obviously we want to get further investigations done, which is what happened, isn't it? So tell me what happened next. So they sent you for a specialist scan?
Yeah, and then they saw that I had 0.5 centimeters of fluid.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. He was literally dry in there.
Oh,
yeah.
And apart
so that's
from
why he stopped moving as well, because do you know what I mean? He could feel everything in there.
Yeah. So not as much cushion.
Yeah, everything was just dry.
Yeah. Oh, poor baby. And how were you feeling at this point? So you, during the pregnancy, did you have any unusual symptoms? So you said that you had a bit of weight loss during the pregnancy over those weeks, and that you noticed that your bump wasn't as big as it had been with your older daughter. Did you have any other symptoms that made you think?
No, literally just the loss of my belly and my clothes getting bigger.
Yeah, so you weren't leaking any fluid at all?
No.
Okay. And that's always something to keep an eye out. If they're ever worried about babies, the fluid around baby, they usually like to test to check that your waters haven't broken. Sometimes it can be very difficult to know during pregnancy. I mean, I'm not sure if you've ever had any incidents in pregnancy where you're like, was that wee?
No, that's the first thing they checked to see if my plug was still intact.
Yeah.
It was,
And that is it. So that's, we like to rule things out. So it's process of elimination, because it's not always obvious what is the cause of, these situations. But they're like, well, can we rule this out? Okay, no. Can we rule out, do you have blood pressure problems? Do you have these problems? Is it this?
I had high blood pressure as well.
You had high blood pressure as well.
But any pregnancy, my body doesn't like extra estrogen.
Yeah.
So even with contraceptive pills, anytime estrogen comes into the body, I always get high blood pressure.
Get high blood pressure. And was that managed with tablets at all?
No, that was
they just
just kept an eye on it. Yeah.
Okay. So pregnancy induced hypertension sounds like what that was. And sometimes in pregnancy is a big stressor on the body. So actually, for some people, it if they have any kind of underlying propensity for blood pressure, then it will just surface in pregnancy. Same with things like diabetes as well. If your body is borderline, may or may not get diabetes later in life, a pregnancy puts a big stress on the body, and then it means boom. It's just you might get that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So blood pressure was managed, and you had extra scans. And do you know how many weeks you were when you had this extra scan in the specialist centre?
I had a lot of scans. I think my first one was around a couple of days after. I was still probably about 32 plus 5 or something like that.
Okay. And then were they scanning you every week or every
2
week?
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah, every week.
Yeah.
So I was going MAU every day, and then one of those days I would go for another growth scan.
Yeah. So it kind of raises some questions then, doesn't it? In terms of, I mean, it sounds like you were able to do that, but if you had a working mum or mum who doesn't have as much funds to be doing that kind of those trips every day, Like it's quite, it sounds like it would have been quite expensive. And, you know, like, you know, you'd probably have to be signed off work if you were working. Like, were you working at the time?
No, I wasn't working at the time.
So, you know, that allowed you to have a bit of capacity to do that, you know, but we do understand that actually a lot of mums are working, you know, and trying to make ends meet, and they've got older children, you know, it can be quite challenging. And I think, you know, if you do have challenges like that, it's important to raise them, to see what other support they have available, what funding they might have in terms of, like, you know, transport allowance, for example, if you're having to hop on a bus, you know, and go into the hospital in and out. You know, there may be something out there. I can't say for certain. We know the state of the NHS at the moment.
I spent a lot on takeaway because I was always there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Did they feed you?
They tried to give me like the sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah, NHS grade sandwiches.
Yeah, I didn't want that at all.
I think it's a balance, isn't it? Because obviously they want, and also, like, imagine that this wasn't your story, but imagine you were diabetic and they're like giving you these light sandwiches that are going to spike your blood sugar. Like,
no, I lived on Uber Eats and Deliveroo.
Oh, so I mean, it's great that you were able to do that, but it kind of, I always get really not anxious, but I think about the women who don't necessarily have that same access and how challenging that can be.
Because they weren't close. Like, the hospital was about 45 minutes from my house.
Wow.
And then the specialist clinic I had to go to was like 50 minutes.
Yeah. So you spent a lot of time on public transport?
No, I drove all the time.
You drove?
Yeah. Yeah, I drove everywhere.
Wow. Brilliant. Okay. So is there anything else you wanted to tell us about that sort of experience of, you know, getting weekly scans, daily CTGs? I mean, I'm tired.
No, I liked it.
You liked it, did it?
I liked it because it kept me reassured all the time. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I was always reassured.
Did you create any bonds with staff?
Yeah, I saw the same staff for weeks, every single day. Yeah.
Yeah, so they all know you by name, know your story.
Yeah.
That's quite nice as well.
I was literally the oligo mum. That's what I was. Because at the time, nobody else on their books had oligo, and like, everybody wanted to come in the room and see what was going on, because a lot of student midwives and junior doctors hadn't ever seen an oligo patient before. So I was like a big case study. Everyone wanted to see what was going on.
Yeah. And it's very good of you to allow them to have that. I think, you know, one of the things that's really important in our current climate of, you know, maternal health as well is there's not enough research and focus onto the implications of these conditions on Black mums. And, you know, I think it's always good where we can to be part of that engagement, so that people can see, okay, this is the impact for me as a woman of colour, and, you know, learn from this, so that actually if you see someone else, you are thinking about, okay,
they might have this,
this can affect her. We need to be, you know, offering this extra testing, this extra scanning, because we know the stats. You know, the recent Embrace report has shown that, you know, between 2020 and 2022, you know, women of colour, Black women actually specifically, were 3 times more likely to die during childbirth compared to white women, and for Asian women that was 2 times more likely. So figures have come down a little bit, because actually in years past, we know about the 5 times more report. When that report came out, Black women were 5 times more likely to die. So it's very slowly creeping downwards, but actually we need to see more changes. So it's really important that we engage in that, as well as in, you know, supporting with the learning where you feel comfortable, but supporting with the learning and education of, you know, student midwives and doctors, so that they have it in their minds. Thank you for doing that.
It's all right.
It's always nice to see mums allowing that. Fab. So you mentioned that you had weekly scans, and at what point did they say it might be time for you to have?
They want him to wait to get to 36 weeks.
Yeah.
Then they induced me 36 plus 1.
And was that just because they were like, right, if everything continues fairly normal within the confines of, it's oligo, but so far so good, we're keeping a track on it and nothing's deteriorated significantly, then they were trying to push to get to 36 weeks.
They said if it becomes a medical emergency, then I would have to have a cesarean. But because he was doing okay, he was happy in there. Even though he was dry, he was still happy in there.
You're a very comfortable mum.
Yeah, he was happy in there. So they were like, let's just leave him to 36, because they didn't want him to have like any extra problems like asthma, and they didn't want to have to give him any steroid injections, nothing like that. They said he's already struggling, to just leave him. He's happy,
And so it's always a balance, isn't it? It's like we want to get you as close to the end of pregnancy as possible, but we don't want to compromise the baby in doing so. So that's the balance we have in the hospitals, is always trying to see, can we get a little bit more time, because that's going to help babies' lungs to mature a bit better, like you were saying about steroids. If we can avoid giving, medications by just getting a few extra days or an extra week or so, then that can sometimes be more beneficial for the baby if baby's coping okay inside.
But they literally admitted me the day I turned 36 weeks. I got an admission.
Good. Did you feel part of like the planning and the management of your care?
Yeah, I did.
You did.
I knew 36 weeks I was going to get induced.
Yeah, and you felt sort of happy that you were being.
Yeah, I was happy that I didn't have to go 40 weeks.
Yeah. Feels like a long time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was happy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main things that I really like, is when women feel involved in the management plans and the care planning. And that's one of the one of the big pushes with all of the current sort of reports that are coming out, is that women need to be involved in the care planning, so that you feel like you've had in-depth discussions about the risks and benefits of all the options that are available to you. So you felt like you had that?
I was.
That's wonderful. I like it.
Was nice. I was just glad that I got the chance to be under the professor, because that was a big deal. Not many people got access to the professor. Like your baby had to had to really be. So once I saw the professor, I felt like I was a lot more reassured.
Good. And so that process from kind of the midwife getting you to into the hospital to be scanned, and the scans then saying we want to get you to a specialist centre for closer monitoring, did you feel like that was kind of timely?
Yeah, it's quick.
Perfect. Good. So I like happy stories. There's lots more, and there's always things that we can improve on, but it's always nice to hear when we do things well in the hospitals.
But I think as well, it was only so smooth because I was so accessible. Like, I could drive there. I was free anytime. I didn't have to go to work, stuff like that.
Yeah, that helped.
Yeah, I feel like if I was at work, it would have been harder, because sometimes they would call me and be like, can you get there in 20 minutes or an hour? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm going there now. But if I wasn't at home or at the hospital, it would have been a lot harder, because sometimes I would leave from the hospital to go to the next hospital to go get seen.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So a lot of appointments.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, interesting. Fab. So how was the induction?
Uncomfortable.
So, but for those of you who may not know, induction of labour is basically where we try and start the labour going, and that could be using internal hormone pessaries, or it could be what we call mechanical, which is where we use a little balloon. It's pushed in through the cervix and then inflated, and that puts a bit of pressure, which then tries to trigger and stimulate labour to get things going. So, because I think a lot of women, what I've tend to notice, women don't like the idea of induction. But what did you have any sort of strong feelings about it either way, or did you mind a cesarean, or were you like, no,
I definitely didn't want a cesarean.
And why was that?
Because I've just always had the trauma that comes off, like the pain, and because remember when I had my daughter, I got pregnant when I was 18. I gave birth when I was 19, and 2 days later, I was in East Street Market doing shopping. So I just remembered normal, like, vaginal births as been easier. So I've never had a cesarean. So I was like, let me just try my best to have a vaginal birth. If I have to have a cesarean for life or death, I would do it. But I didn't want to just do a cesarean up front. I really wanted to try have a vaginal birth.
Yeah. And you had a vaginal birth?
Yeah, I had a vaginal birth,
And it was sort of a straightforward birth. How was he at birth? How was Kavani at birth?
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
It just took, like, I got induced on the Tuesday, I gave birth on the Saturday.
Yeah, it can take a while, because what might have happened is if you weren't being induced and we were waiting for labour to happen naturally, you might have had some of those niggles and aches and pains at home, but carried on because, until it was actually officially ready. But with induction of labour, we're really trying to force the body, and sometimes the body's not ready. If you're thinking 36 weeks when term is anything past 37 weeks, and for most women that might be 40 weeks or 41 weeks when labour really starts to because
I had my daughter at 41 plus 2.
So it could have been a long way off, so the body might not have been sort of ready, and we're trying to stimulate the body to get ready. So it's really important to kind of understand that can take a little while. You wouldn't want to rush it, because your body can overreact to induction if we are pushing it too hard. So we like it to be a gradual process, and that's why it can take days. Did you have like home leave, or was it just once you're in, you're in? I was in. Eating hospital sandwiches and meals.
Yeah, I was in. Once I was in, I was locked in.
Good. Okay. So that's great. So I think what I'd like to know next is what was done well, in your opinion, about your care. I think we've touched on it, but I just want to hear it from you. Like, what do you feel was done well during your pregnancy and the labour and birth?
So I got a choice as into what I wanted to do. Like, they offered me a cesarean and I was allowed to say no. Like, when the induction, because I'd never had an induction before, so they spoke through every single thing, like the pessary, and they literally went through everything with me and explained everything, like what's going to happen next. So
fabulous. And because obviously that was, you know, you were in for a few days and things, and did they sort of keep explaining that to you? Was it like one and done? Because actually
no, they kept on explaining it, because when they put the first pessary, it didn't work. Then I had to have another pessary. And then I had to have, I don't remember what you have after the pessary.
So sometimes they will, they might do a gel or a tablet and then try and break the waters.
I had like multiple different, it wasn't like just the pessary and that's it. It was like multiple
there's stages to it. So it's like stage 1, okay, it's just kind of warming up.
That's
stage 2 is
how
like,
it
okay,
was.
let's try and get some contractions going. Stage 3 is okay, let's break the waters.
I literally did all of that. And then they broke the water. I did all of that.
You did the full shebang. Tuesday to Saturday, full shebang. You tried every flavour.
So it was really uncomfortable.
And it can be. And what did you use? Did you have the gas and air for labour and birth?
But I didn't have any pain relief until around the Friday.
And did you feel like you needed it? Were you listening to
I was okay.
You were okay, fine.
I was still mobile, like jumping on my back, like my ball, everything. Going for walks, like everything.
Good.
Yeah.
Lovely. So you felt like you had a choice. That's really great. What do you think could have been done better if you were, you know, sitting with some healthcare professionals and you thought, okay, I thought everything, you know, this was good, but here's some learning. Do you think there was any learning that you would offer?
No, I think Oligo was handled quite well. Yeah.
It's good to hear. I love
think
it.
Oligo was handled quite well. And I'm happy they didn't rush to get him out.
Yeah,
that's what I was happy with. They just watched him very closely.
Yeah. So it gave you the best chance, really, of getting that kind of normal birth and that stage at the end, as close to the end as you could get to.
Because by the time I gave birth, I think I was 37. Because I got in, I was 37 by the time I gave birth.
Got in right, called it term right at the end.
Yeah, literally. I gave birth at 37 weeks.
Awesome. So the last question on this topic that I have is, what advice would you give to other mums? So, you know, if there might be other mums who are like, oh, I'm losing a bit of weight in pregnancy, or, oh, okay, like, you know, baby's measuring small, midwife said it's fine. Like, what advice would you give to other mums who may find themselves in a similar position?
Always follow your gut instinct. Don't rely on Google, number one, because I went to Google. I went to Google first. And it was just telling me some awful things. I just came off. And don't be afraid to call the triage. Like, you might feel like you're annoying them, but that's what they're there for. Like, any questions you have, just keep calling them. Go in if you can. Because I noticed with oligo, it could be an hit and miss. Like, if they didn't pick it up, or if I wasn't so on the ball, like keeping on calling, then maybe they would have missed it. And obviously, his kidneys had already stopped working, so we don't know what else could have stopped working.
That's true.
Yeah.
Fab, I love that. Thank you. So trust your gut. You know, don't be afraid to call. Literally triage of 24 hours. That means it is a service that we have put staff there to man. So we are there for you. So if you feel like it's 3 a.m., you had dinner, baby didn't move. You went to lie down, baby didn't move. You fell asleep, you woke up, you haven't felt baby move. Definitely call 3 a.m. If you can't get through on the phones for whatever reason, go straight into the unit. We would rather see you 10 times over and say, yeah, false alarm, or yeah, everything's fine, and that was, don't worry about it, than that one time that you sat at home and you didn't feel right and you thought, I'll just wait. We would rather see you and send you home, and rather than you worrying at home. And
the second I knew something was wrong, I kept taking pictures. So when I felt my belly getting smaller, I would start taking pictures. Then when I'd put the pictures together, I could show them.
And I think that's really important as well, is document your symptoms. This is one of the things, even for women with their gynecology journey, endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, whatever your issue is, if you're not sure, because it's not always clear cut, and sometimes it can take some time for you to realize that something's not quite right. Journal it, write it down on a piece of paper, on a note on your phone, like just go, okay, 13th of February, this happened. Actually I noticed that on the 10th of February, that happened after I went to wee, or something, just document it so that when you're going to the triage or when you're speaking to a doctor, you'll be like, right, this is it. And they appreciate that, because that helps them think about potentially what it might be. And if you think, if you have been like, oh, I know someone who had oligohydramnios and they mentioned this was a similar situation, tell them that, so that they have it on their radar to go, okay, well, no, actually, it can't be, Natalie, it can't be oligo because, when we look at this and this, it doesn't match up.
Yeah.
And then if you're still not happy with that, go for a second opinion,
yeah,
right?
Talk to someone else.
Yeah. So fabulous. Thank you so much, Natalie. That's amazing. Okay. I'm just so grateful for you coming to share that, because I know it's quite an intimate thing to go through a pregnancy, and there might have been moments of uncertainty as well for you, of like, what's going on? Should we be waiting or not? So it's nice to speak to you about that and to hear your voice.
Thank you.
So Natalie is going to be back soon, telling us a little bit more about one of her other pregnancies with her second son, Cairo. So stay tuned, guys.
See you.